Hey there, everyone. Today I'm going to share a story that happened 2 years ago. A woman named Chloe, through a moment of foolishness, cheated on her husband on her own birthday. He never found out, but the guilt still haunts her to this day. You're about to find out how it all went down. Stick around, it's going to be interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. At 29, Chloe was simply stunning. A tall, slender brunette who could turn heads without even trying. She had shed her youthful skinniness, and her figure had blossomed into even more alluring curves than before. Gorgeous long brown hair and big, expressive eyes made her irresistible. Chloe was used to male attention, but she had always been faithful to her husband, whom she'd been with for over 10 years. Josh, Chloe's husband, was a fun, good-looking guy, 33 years old, a successful businessman who made good money. He certainly noticed other women, but he too knew where to draw the line. The most he allowed himself was a little harmless flirting to keep his ego in check. For Chloe's birthday, they decided to invite close friends over to their cozy apartment in downtown Manhattan. She was turning 29. On the morning of her birthday, Josh gave her a beautifully wrapped set of lingerie from the famous brand Victoria's Secret. He placed the box and a new skirt on the bed before leaving for work, kissing his sleeping wife gently on the lips. Chloe spent the whole morning trying on different tops and blouses with that coveted skirt. She looked absolutely breathtaking in it, especially with the stockings he'd gifted her. Once her evening outfit was chosen, she headed to the grocery store to get everything for the party. By 7 p.m., the table in the living room was set. Glancing at the clock, she waited for Josh to get home. When he saw her, he was speechless. Is she really planning to receive guests dressed like that? He thought. Before he could even step fully into the apartment, she showed him that she was wearing practically every single gift he'd given her. Chloe covered him in kisses and whispered in his ear that after the guests left, she would give him a night he'd never forget. Josh was, of course, thrilled that his gift was such a hit. Ding dong, the first guests arrived. It was Chloe's friend Katie with her husband Kevin. Then came Ryan with his wife Sarah, and then Daisy. Soon the apartment was filled with people. The clinking of glasses and melodic jazz filled the air as the girls chatted about work, upcoming vacations, and the latest hit TV shows. It has to be said, in her outfit and high heels, she looked overwhelmingly sexy. Any husband in Josh's place would be burning with jealousy. He found himself watching how she sat, how she leaned over the table to pass dishes. Paranoia began to set in. He watched Kevin, who, as if on purpose, always seemed to be in the exact spot where, from Josh's perspective, he had the best view of his wife. Josh's fears weren't just paranoia. Kevin was devouring Chloe with his eyes. Unable to control himself, Josh pulled his wife into the hallway for yet another jealous scene. Button up your blouse right now. I can see him staring at you. Don't start, Josh. No one is staring. There you go again. Please stop it. Well, can you at least fix your stockings? The tops are showing. What will people think? Just as Chloe, lifting her skirt slightly, started to adjust her stockings, Kevin appeared in the hallway, heading to the kitchen for another bottle of champagne. Oops, Chloe giggled and quickly smoothed her skirt down. Pretending he hadn't seen anything, Kevin calmly walked to the kitchen, and the couple returned to their guests. A little later, Josh's friends Mike and Andrew showed up. Mike was known in their circle for being a ladies' man. He wasn't into serious relationships and was what you'd call a charmer. Andrew was more of a romantic, which gave him a certain charm. He was selective with women and didn't waste his time on casual flings, unlike Michael. Andrew admired Chloe and thought Josh was a lucky man. He never crossed the line between admiration and outright hitting on her. Mike, on the other hand, always made it clear she was exactly his type. But Chloe loved Josh and never gave her husband any real cause for concern. Josh understood this and held no grudge against his friend. He was confident Mike would never go beyond a little light flirting. One by one, the guests made toasts, competing in their eloquence. Champagne flowed freely, and the alcohol began to take over, relaxing everyone more and more. Within an hour and a half, Chloe had emptied 5 glasses of her favorite champagne. Mike and Kevin couldn't take their eyes off her. Eventually, the guests moved to the sofa, and Chloe started clearing the table, taking dirty dishes to the kitchen. The guys kept trying to help, constantly finding excuses to get close to her, even to touch her. It was time to take the raspberry pie she'd baked out of the oven. Making sure the kitchen was empty, she bent over to check if it was ready. Right at that moment, Mike walked in and froze, captivated. He looked at her with a hungry gaze. "Honey, could you help me get this baking sheet out? I think the pie is ready," she said softly. Without a word, he reached around her, grabbed the oven mitts, and helped her pull out the hot pan. Chloe found herself trapped between the scorching metal and her husband's friend, who had boldly assumed a familiar role. She gasped and told him to quickly put the pan on the stove and let her go. Mike, taking his time and savoring the moment, complied. Freeing herself, she swung to slap him, but he caught her wrist just in time. He quickly muttered that she had misunderstood, that he was just trying to help because he was afraid she'd burn herself, something he couldn't allow. Smiling, he apologized and tried to hug her. Blushing with shame, she pulled away. The awkward moment didn't last long. Josh walked into the kitchen. Chloe grabbed the pie and hurried back to the guests. After what happened, she tried to avoid making eye contact with Mike. He, on the contrary, kept trying to catch her gaze, reveling in her embarrassment and sensing her vulnerable fear of being alone with him again. By 11, the champagne was gone and the whiskey came out. The girls drank it with Coke, the guys with ice. The soft music switched to dance tunes, and after an hour, everyone decided to go to a club. By this point, almost everyone was pretty drunk. Chloe had somewhat recovered from the kitchen incident, but the alcohol was making her lose control. Before leaving, she decided to change her shoes. Being fairly drunk, she didn't notice that almost all the guests had already gone downstairs. Kevin and Mike were taking their time getting ready, adjusting their jackets, cleaning their shoes, doing anything to stay behind and watch the intoxicated hostess change her heels. Not everyone went to the club. Katie said she had to get up early and asked Chloe to keep an eye on her husband, Kevin, to make sure he behaved and came home in a couple of hours. In the first car to the club went Andrew, Kevin, Ryan, and Sarah. The second car was for Josh, Chloe, Mike, and Daisy. When Chloe came down, the first car had already left, and the rest of the group was waiting for her in the second taxi. Josh was in the front seat, trying to explain the route to the confused driver. The car, parked close to the building wall, made it impossible to get in on the right side, where Daisy was already sitting. Chloe realized she would have to sit next to Mike. "You bastard," she thought, "you planned this." Too drunk to ask her husband to switch places, she was sure Mike wouldn't dare touch her with Josh right there. The whole ride, Daisy was engrossed in her phone. Josh kept telling the driver where to turn. Mike sat in the middle and waited for every bump and turned to accidentally brush against Chloe. She was fighting sleep, afraid of losing control, but eventually she dozed off. "We're here, let's go," Mike said to her. She got out of the car, caught up with Josh, and they entered the club. On the way, Josh once again commented on her appearance. The high heels, the visible tops of her stockings, and her almost unbuttoned blouse. They caught up with Daisy and headed straight to the bar. It turned out the bar didn't have decent whiskey, so they decided to stick with cocktails. After a while, Josh's colleague Timothy showed up, congratulated the birthday girl, and pulled Josh away to his table to discuss some work matters. The girls kept drinking and, reaching a certain state, hit the dance floor. Daisy disappeared from view pretty quickly. From all the drinks, Chloe completely gave herself over to the music, her body moving perfectly to the rhythm. A local macho man appeared behind her and started dancing with her. Not resisting his attention, she took it as an invitation. He began to gently touch her waist and hips with his hands. Mike saw Chloe when she was already in the guy's embrace, and he was whispering something in her ear. She was listening sweetly, her arms around his neck. Mike pulled out his phone and instantly took several pictures. Then, playing the role of the jealous husband, he broke them up and forcefully led her away from the dance floor. She was too drunk to argue, her tongue and legs were failing her. Leaving the dance floor, she said she needed to use the ladies' room. She felt sick and wanted to get to the bathroom to pull herself together. Mike, holding her without a word, led her to the restroom. The club had shared stalls and the line was long. They had to wait. Mike didn't leave her side. Waiting her turn, she slurred her words, asking him to leave, saying she didn't need his help and, on the contrary, wanted him to leave her alone. He explained he was protecting her from the local guys. It was finally her turn, and Chloe rushed into the free stall. Suspecting Mike might follow, she tried to slam the door shut, but her fragile, drunken hands were no match for his strength. They both ended up inside the stall. Through the alcoholic haze, Chloe realized where this might be headed and tried to push the uninvited guest out. He easily overcame her resistance and locked the door behind him, causing her to let out a quiet cry and retreat towards the sink. Barely thinking and not fully grasping the reality, she looked at him questioningly. Mike was clearly enjoying her helplessness. Feeling like her master, he knew he could do whatever he wanted with her. She could barely stand. He started kissing her. Closing her eyes, she involuntarily whispered, "Mike, please don't. Please, I'm begging you." And yet, they were intimate. A little later, catching their breath, reason began to overpower lust. She started to realize what she had done and, covering her face with her hands, began to sob. Mike pulled her up from the floor and, taking out his phone, showed her several pictures. One clearly showed her embracing some guy on the dance floor. "I hope you understand now that our little secret should stay between us. You'll rename my contact in your phone so your hubby doesn't get suspicious. It's better for everyone if fewer people know about our meetings." Not waiting for her reaction, he unlocked the door and left, leaving it slightly ajar. Numb with humiliation, she tried to understand what he meant by meetings. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice, or more likely didn't care, when the stall door creaked open again, and the same guy she'd been dancing with 20 minutes earlier appeared in front of her. After Mike had taken her away, the stranger, unwilling to accept defeat, had followed them. He hadn't lost sight of his escaped prey. From a distance, he'd seen which stall she'd entered. He clicked the lock and said, "Well, shall we continue what we started?" He took her by the arms, lifted her, and pressed her against the wall. She stood there submissively, not saying a word. He didn't want to linger, so it all happened fairly quickly. Hastily, without a word, he left the stall. Suddenly, the alcohol seemed to have completely left her system. There was no time to come up with an alibi for Josh. He must have been looking for her for a while. She took her phone out of her purse and saw 15 missed calls from Josh. Pulling herself together, she dialed his number. Finally. "Where are you? I've been looking all over the club for you for an hour. Josh, baby, I was so sick. I'm sorry, I've been in the bathroom all this time. I'll come to you now. Are you still here? I'll meet you at the exit." "Okay." Chloe tried to pull herself together and headed for the exit. In the taxi, she blamed him for leaving her alone. The tactic worked and she managed to make him feel guilty. Unable to withstand her anger, Josh tried to justify himself as best he could. When they arrived home, the driver jumped out and hurried to open the door for her, offering his hand. He helped her out of the car, and they went upstairs. She, of course, never confessed anything to her husband. She had to meet with Mike one more time because he started blackmailing her with the photos. After their meeting, they agreed he would delete them. He kept his word. She deeply regrets what happened, and it has never happened again. Now she tries to dress and act more modestly. What would you have done in her situation? Should she have told her husband everything and opened his eyes to his so-called friends who tried to seduce his wife the moment his back is turned? Please, share your thoughts in the comments below.